ever since the current regime decided to offer one more slogan for us to live by, which is Viksit Bharat or a developed India by 2047, there is a lot of chatter about how India can become prosperous. How countries become rich is a huge topic of debate, not just in India, but all over the world. And that's because there are only a few rich countries surrounded by a sea of struggling nations. The World Bank classifies countries as low income, lower middle income, upper middle income, and high income or rich countries. There are 58 high income countries, although there are big differences among them. 28 other countries are also considered high income, but they're not really relevant for us because they are tiny islands, European principalities, overseas dominions of European empire, or tax havens. About 26 countries, mostly in Africa and parts of Asia, which is Congo, Rwanda, Somalia, Mozambique, Yemen, Afghanistan, and North Korea, are categorized as low income and are mostly failed states. India is among the 52 countries tagged as lower middle income, along with Bangladesh, Myanmar, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, and 54 are upper middle income countries, which includes a lot of Southeast Asian countries and parts of Latin America. In short, excluding tiny islands and offshore havens, 74% of the world is not rich. The rich ones are geographically concentrated in Europe, North America, and East Asia. In short, getting to become a rich nation or a developed nation or Viksit Bharat is not the rule. It's the exception. Can India defy historical odds and join the ranks of developed countries? Historically, most nations have managed to move only one income bracket higher over the past 80 years. Countries that are rich became so by 18th century, and all credit to them, they have maintained their status. Fact is, just as European countries have not collapsed into middle income status, it has been nearly impossible to make a leap into the league of high income ones for countries that have been poor 30, 40, 50 years ago. Since World War II, only 4 countries managed to grow their economy fast enough and long enough to pull themselves out of poverty or the ruins of war and become rich countries. And they are Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, and Singapore. China is not yet rich. It is upper middle income. Its growth has slowed down and is desperately trying to avoid what the economists call the middle income trap. Some countries have moved up to upper middle income status but failed to break into the developed world or the rich world status. Is there any reason to believe that India can achieve what scores of other countries such as Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, South Africa, Turkey, and Mexico have not? What is indeed the highway to high growth? The World Bank and International Monetary Fund advise fiscal discipline, trade and financial liberalization, privatization, open markets, and competition, all collectively known as the Washington Consensus. However, not a single country has ever prospered by applying this recipe. In Why Nations Fail, Darren Acemoglu and James Robinson argue that it is inclusive political and economic institutions as opposed to extractive institutions that determine prosperity. Last year, they and Simon Johnson, the 3 of them, won the Nobel Prize for this work. Applying this framework, we realize that India has an extractive state and poor institutions, which will undermine our potential. But then, South Korea, a colony of Japan and as poor as India in the 1950s, did not have any stronger institutions than, say, Argentina, when Park Chung-hee imposed military dictatorship and fathered an unparalleled economic miracle over 25 years. And what of China, which has forged ahead for the last 30 years without Western-style inclusive institutions? In any case, this theory provides no practical path to messy and poor democracies where pressures of competitive populism may keep institutions weak and the state extractive. The model that best explains rapid economic growth is a very specific version of economic nationalism, a blend of protectionism for young industries to grow, selective import of technology to learn from the best, and fostering strong domestic competition so that the best of them survive and eventually become world champions. Countries have to be open to the best ideas and closed to the exploitation by foreign trade and capital at the same time. This is the common thread running through the extraordinary growth of all four major successes of 20th century, which is Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and China. It also powered England in the 18th century and United States and Germany in the 19th century, apart from strong innovation. The most crucial element in this model is culling of inefficient entities, whether in the private or in the public sector, to ensure that only the best ones remain. Fact is, all countries have tried variations of this economic policy, but only in parts and mostly in a half-hearted manner. And so they have fallen short of achieving high growth. India had industrial protection, but ended up with low domestic competition or no competition until 1991. While China made local governments compete fiercely, India followed an equitable backward area development model. India launched export processing zones, but failed to implement them with the same zeal as China. Some of them were pure land grab exercises under the Congress regime. Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and India have all invited foreign technology, but not with a focused strategy to create local export champions. Most importantly, no policy can be conceived in a perfect form. They start with several flaws. To work in the messy laboratory of real life, we need accountability, genuine feedback, and rapid course correction. This is what separates winners and losers. The Indian government set up steel plants in the 1950s, which became white elephants. South Korea set up Pohang Iron and Steel Plant in 1968, which became a world beater. Starting with a planned economy may have been the better option in the 1950s because Indian private sector was stunted at that time. But then there were no course corrections to this public sector policy, no culling of the inefficient, and incentives for the efficient. Without this, any policy will fail. Sadly, such course correction and culling of the inefficient is not even in the agenda, even now. If you liked what you heard, please do share, and thanks for watching.